Calling for him, trying to hear if he'll call back or whistle.
He says his dad, 59-year-old Robert Belding, was last seen Sunday night at a friend's house near the river. He was there to help protect the home from flooding. Although nobody saw the incident, Coquitlam Search and Rescue say they believe Robert fell in while trying to rescue a dog they say was later found by local residents after it made it to shore. The water was still surging Tuesday. An atmospheric river dropped over 250 millimeters of rain on Coquitlam between Friday and Sunday.
The flow coming down the Coquitlam River and all the streams and rivers in our area right now are above average, just with the rain event that we just had here.
Crews were out searching the southern portion of the river on Tuesday.
At this point, we have not seen anything. We have found some clues, but our hopes are high and we're still looking for our subject.
The impact of the storm being felt widely in the province. Another Coquitlam resident, 57-year-old Sonia McIntyre, was found dead after her house was swept away by a mudslide on Saturday. 2 more people have been confirmed dead on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Police say their vehicles went into the Sarita River after heavy rain washed out the road to Bamfield. David Eby addressing the deadly toll of the storm here in BC.
My heart goes out to the families of those who are missing, who have died. It's devastating for them and for their communities. The shock, I'm sure, is overwhelming, and I know where we don't have answers yet, the waiting must be excruciating.
Eby says the province will review the deaths to see if there are any lessons or improvements that can be made for future rainfall incidents. In the meantime, Ethan says he will continue searching until his dad is found.
I just want to find my dad. Yeah, that's all.
Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Coquitlam.
A new Westminster councillor is again calling for a region-wide approach to extreme weather events after the torrential rain that the South Coast endured this past weekend.
Weather doesn't stop at Boundary Road or North Road. It impacts the entire region. Some people get it a bit worse, some people maybe get a little bit less, but these are region-wide events.
Daniel Fontaine first suggested a snow summit in 2022 to better coordinate resources within Metro Vancouver. That summit never happened, but Fontaine is renewing his call for a regional approach after this weekend's atmospheric river. The RCMP now says the body of a second person has been found inside their vehicle after a road washed away on the west coast of Vancouver Island during the torrential downpour, bringing the known death toll from that weather event to 3. Police say 2 cars went into the Sarita River near Bamfield Road, or when Bamfield Road washed out on Saturday. While more information is still being gathered on those who were killed, one of the dead, Ken Duncan, was well known in the First Nation community.
It is much better now than it used to be, for sure. However, I don't think a once every 200-year storm is something that we were prepared for. And as a result, rivers has flooded the road, and that's something that we need to take a look at for sure.
Police had previously confirmed 1 vehicle was found fully submerged in the Sarita River on Saturday, with the driver found dead nearby. A second vehicle has also been found on the waterway, with that person presumed dead inside. Along with Ken Duncan, a second man has been identified as Bob Baden. Waiya First Nation Chief Councillor John Jack says both men lived in Bamfield, a community of about 200 people that's in the middle of the Waiya First Nations land and Pacific Rim National Park. Now, in North Vancouver, a state of local emergency remains after this weekend's deluge. Officials continue to survey the damage on about 6 homes that had to be evacuated. Belle Puri has more on the big cleanup.
We've had lots of people coming by when we were cleaning up trying to help us, and so this is from a local in the area, gave us a dehumidifier.
The intense storm has let up, but the moisture will likely linger for days.
Yeah, we've got a few fans going, mostly they're in the back right now because we just lent a few to the art gallery as well and the theater.
Around the corner and down the street, a bigger cleanup is underway.
This morning, we deployed our crews to start working on resolving an imminent life safety risk in a number of properties south of Panorama Drive.
6 homes have been evacuated, 18 residents have been displaced. Water is being removed from behind a potentially collapsing retaining wall.
And that was the concern there, that if the retaining wall went, that we couldn't guarantee the safety of the surrounding houses. But as it goes on, obviously, we're going to be looking at the structures as well.
In anticipation of the storm, streets were swept and catch basins were cleared out. The mayor says 344 millimeters of rain fell over 3 days.
I can't stress enough, the amount of material and rain that came down in an incredibly short period of time was historic.
Almost 20 years ago, much less rain, 275 millimeters over 5 days, fell in a devastating storm that caused a slide and killed a resident. This week's incredibly heavy storm simply overwhelmed the systems.
If you were asking me again what we could have done differently, I'd probably be pre-positioning the backhoe close to the catch basins, because as soon as those first 2 scoops came out, the water went back underground, the system performed correctly.
In the end, a number of creeks overflowed.
There's quite a number of culverts and creeks that cross this road. It's really challenging to really predict exactly which catchment area is going to be collecting all that stormwater.
It's hoped the emergency order for the homes can be revised in the next day or so. For others, getting back to normal may be an indefinite wait. Belle Puri, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi joins us for a look at the weather, and we went from rain and cloud to at least a clear sky across parts of the south coast.
Yes, that seems to be the case. A little bit of cloud happening up in the north. You can see a little bit of precipitation coming in earlier today up in the Peace, that sort of area. But generally speaking, things are calming down. Here on the south coast, we had a little bit of wind in some places. We had some cloud, but clearing out at times throughout the day. Overall, conditions have been, again, really just nothing exciting happening, which is a nice change of pace after the weekend. Again, if we roll this forward, you can see in our precipitation forecast and our cloud forecast that we're going to see that cloud move in and out throughout the day tomorrow, in and out throughout the day on Thursday. Maybe a few showers pop up on parts of the island, although not likely to break in here. There is a possibility that we get some showers here tomorrow morning, maybe into the early afternoon. But overall, Dan, things seem very calm.
We'll take it. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
BC NDP leader David Eby says all options are on the table as he tries to form a government after Saturday's nail-biter election. New Democrats sit just 1 seat short of a majority ahead of the final vote count. As Mira Baines explains, both Eby and the BC Conservatives are rather keen to chat with the Green Party.
And nothing's off the table.
David Eby is keeping his options open as he and voters await the final result of the provincial election. If the numbers hold, the BC NDP and the 2 Green MLAs could forge a confidence and supply deal to reach that magic number of 47 seats needed to form government. The BC Green Party confirms leader Sonia Furstenau will stay on, even though she lost in a new riding.
The Greens have advised us that they are not ready yet to engage in those conversations, but we are preparing for what we hope is the likely outcome of the counting without taking anything for granted.
In a statement, Furstenau says British Columbians demonstrated that they don't trust any one party with 100% of the power. I am prepared to provide guidance and counsel as our party and our province enter this new chapter. Eby acknowledges the NDP needs to do better for British Columbians.
They want their emergency rooms open and running. They want their family doctor, and anything less is unacceptable. That when it comes to their downtowns, they want to feel safe with their kids going downtown. When they run a business downtown, they don't want to be dealing with someone struggling with a brain injury, mental health issue, and addiction.
BC Conservative leader John Rustad says he's ready to talk with the Green Party as well, but neither the NDP nor Conservatives share a warm relationship with the Greens. After the ultra-narrow 2017 election, then NDP leader John Horgan and Green leader Andrew Weaver hammered out a supply and confidence deal. 3 years later, then Premier Horgan ripped up the arrangement, called an election, and won a commanding majority, leaving some bitter feelings. Still, another deal could be made this time. Support on a vote-by-vote basis is one option.
Or they may go back to a supply and confidence arrangement, in which case you put into place not only a core set of concerns that you're going to work together on, but some kind of mechanism for resolving disputes as they arise.
But those options will have to wait until the final vote is complete. That's set for October 26th to 28th. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The last few days have been politically tense in this province, to say the least, and the final counts are still some days away. The CBC's Maurice Katz explains what may happen next.
Are you confused about what's going on in this provincial election? Here's what we know so far. After the initial count, the NDP's leading or elected in 46 seats, the Conservatives in 45, and the Greens in 2. There are 11 seats still not declared. New Democrats lead in 6, and the Conservatives are ahead in 5. Those will be finalized in what Elections BC calls Final Count, scheduled for October 26th to October 28th. Final Count includes absentee and mail-in ballots that cannot be tallied in the initial count. The majority of the votes at Final Count will be mail-in ballots. Elections BC estimates just under 50,000 ballots will be considered as part of the final count. There will also be 2 types of recounts. Automatic recounts will take place in the ridings of Juan de Fuca Malahat and Surrey City Centre. That's because the top 2 candidates were separated by 100 votes or less. These recounts will happen at the same time as final count and will be counted by hand. After all that, Elections BC says a judicial count could happen if the difference between the 2 top candidates in a riding is less than 1/500th of the total ballots considered. In that case, a BC Supreme Court judge would count those votes. A candidate can request a judicial recount in some cases. And now you're all caught up. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's provincial health officer is again encouraging you to get vaccinated against the flu and COVID-19. Dr. Bonnie Henry says vaccinations are the best way for people to protect themselves and their community ahead of the respiratory illness season.
I expect that we're going to start seeing influenza and RSV start to increase probably late November, early into December, seeing the patterns that we're seeing now. But COVID-19 remains elevated. It was elevated through the summer. It never did go back to what we would call a seasonal spread. We had a slight increase in the spring, and it leveled off a little bit in the summer, but we're starting to see that increase again.
BC's Health Ministry says on the very first day of delivery of those vaccines on October 15th, pharmacies gave almost 82,000 COVID and flu vaccines for priority people, a record for any single day. A man accused of assaulting a tourist in Vancouver earlier this month will remain in jail until his next court date. Massimo Rosario Falvo is charged with aggravated assault, accused of repeatedly punching and kicking a 35-year-old woman in the face near the entrance to the waterfront SkyTrain station. Police say the victim suffered numerous injuries and was treated in hospital. The force says the suspect and victim did not know each other. Court records indicate Falvo was on probation at the time. This year's Remembrance Day Poppy campaign has begun in Victoria, with BC's Lieutenant Governor receiving the first one.
I will be wearing the poppy proudly every day between now and November the 11th when the ceremony concludes, and I certainly encourage all British Columbians to do the same and to take the opportunity to reflect on the service and the sacrifice of so many veterans, soldiers who've served our countries and their families.
The presentation took place at Government House with a group of representatives from the BC Yukon Command of the Royal Canadian Legion. Funds raised in the Poppy campaign go towards supporting veterans, their loved ones, and remembrance programs. Poppies will be available to all Canadians starting Friday. A will to survive. A winemaker tells us about the amazing resilience of his Okanagan crop. You'll want to see this next. 8 families, including several from BC, spent the day on Parliament Hill, calling for an inquiry into police violence against Black and Indigenous people amid a string of recent officer-involved deaths. Between August 29th and September 18th, police have killed 9 Indigenous people across the country. The group says a federal inquiry would give Indigenous leaders and their communities a chance to confront systemic violence. Among them is Laura Holland, whose son Jared Lowndes was killed by police in Campbell River in 2021.
So we need changes, and we need systemic changes. We need systemic changes from an unaccountable government. We need someone to listen to us.
The group says they invited Federal Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc and RCMP Commissioner Michael Deham, but have not heard back. They were planning to hold a candlelight vigil in the evening. Last year's cold snap in BC severely impacted the wine industry in the Okanagan. While the harvest was all but wiped out, the plants themselves are finding a way to regrow. We spoke with a winemaker about what they're seeing and the amazing resilience of nature.
I'm in our vineyard. We call it the Circara Vineyard, the people that planted the vineyard that we bought from. And this is between Oliver and Osoyoos. Grapevines, they're perennial plants, and they're not unlike a tree. And, they have a trunk. And, on those trunks, they have buds, and from those buds grow a cane. And as you know, we've had some really severe winter events over the last 3 years. And it has damaged or killed the vines, that are exposed to the cold air up in the air. And the vines are smart, and they're a testament to the will to live. And they have their root system, which are not dead. And in our case, we have our vines are on their own roots, and those own roots have pushed up canes, from the ground level, and they're still alive. And what we're going to do is take those canes. We've teased out several, and we're going to lay them down on the ground, pin them along the row, just using like a 6-inch landscaping staple, and then we're going to bury them using an implement on our tractor just to hill up dirt over top of them. That cane next spring, if it's been a hard winter, either way, we're going to unbury it and bare it and let it come up. And if it was a hard winter, we have a new trunk, and we can actually get a crop next year. From that cane, we'll just tie it back up into the trellis system. And if it's a mild winter, and I hope it is. I hope that this is all for naught. But if it's a mild winter, that's great. We'll still unbury them. We'll cut them back so that we have 2 more buds that we can grow up again next year and bury again next winter. And that's our insurance policy. Well, we trialed this last year in a vineyard, actually up in Kamloops. Ed and Vicky Collett did this, and they did a fantastic job. They got them about 4 inches deep, and right now, that is the only crop that we are receiving from British Columbia is from that vineyard, where, by the way, it hit minus 32 degrees Celsius. Think of that. That 4 inches is also, it's also trapping in the Earth's heat. I'm told that they're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of -4, -5 degrees Celsius at that depth. It was a bit daunting to take this on, and we didn't know what it was going to cost, but we thought we got to do this. And, we're farmers, and therefore we're practical, and and we've got to figure out how to farm our crop, or otherwise we have to change our crop. So we started doing this, and we thought a lot about it. We have a very talented crew, very hardworking crew, and a lot of effort went to it, a lot of thought. And we think we have it down to a few $100s an acre, and that's the entire process. So that is expensive. We farm about 70 acres. But in the end, that sure is absorbable, and certainly beats not having a crop.
A look at the morning sunrise in Tofino from the Wickaninnish Inn, a gorgeous clear sky on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Darius Madavi is coming up with a look at your BC-wide forecast. Stay with us.
I think it's important to give a human face to the stories that we hear every day, the people that they affect. And I think talking to those people is what really gives us the true sense of the impact of the stories that we're hearing.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi has our BC-wide weather forecast on a bit of a mixed day, at least across the Lower Mainland.
Yes, and we've got some more of those on the way. As you can see here, a few showers are expected at times across the Lower Mainland, as well as up the sea to sky over the next few days. The island will experience pretty much the same thing. It's not going to be anything significant. It's some snow in the mountains because freezing levels are fairly low, although probably not the local mountains. I don't think they're quite that low. But some really just very, very brief showers passing through for a couple hours each day and only hitting a few spots every time they do. So as you can see here is the same case for the island. The North Island may be getting a little bit more consistent precipitation, but really not much. It's a fairly dry couple of days before we set up for a much wetter time into the weekend. You can see here some snow feeding into the northwest, maybe break into the interior at times, some rain for right by the coast. The mountains also getting some snow, but for the most part dry in southern BC, and for the most part fairly sunny at times. And then you can see this big wave of precipitation coming in, Haida Gwaii getting hit first, and then coming down to the island, spreading pretty much across the south coast. Vancouver getting some pretty consistent rainfall, as well as parts of the island, pretty much through the midnight Friday, right through Saturday, and then into very early Sunday morning, and then probably just showery on Sunday itself. If we take a look at our highs across the province today, again, pretty close to seasonal, maybe a couple degrees below in many places, but close to it. Very similar over the next few days as well. Some places see a fluctuation of 5 degrees or so, but here on the coast, we're going up and down by maybe a degree or two. Our lows are also not quite seasonal here on the lower mainland. They're a little bit below, but in other places, as normal, we are already into the negatives here. And across the province tomorrow, some snow and rain happening in Prince George at times early in the morning, but for the most part, pretty calm across BC. Lots of sunshine many places. And again, Dan, bit of a variable forecast, but it's autumn.
It couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here on CBC Vancouver News. For news anytime, please check our website, as you do, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1 that begins tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.